What's up, guys? I'm Erica Martin, and I'm so excited you have decided to join me on this awesome web class today. So I want to give you a great understanding of what you're about to learn and what you have to look forward to. And as you see, I'm joined by my sidekick. This is Bailey. So in today's web class, you are going to see one of my most popular talks ever. People love this because there's so much content in there that they can actually take and implement right away. And that's why you're here, right? So what you're about to see is a talk that I did for Grace Lever, who is one of the most outstanding and well-recognized female entrepreneurs in Australia. She coaches thousands of female coaches and has a very, very successful coaching business herself. So you'll hear a very kind introduction from her about me, a little bit about my personal story and how I found and formed this sales that don't suck system. And then of course, the moment you've all been waiting for is the actual consult call formula. This is the formula that takes you from consult to client in 60 minutes or less. And not just any client. I'm talking about a high ticket client that's your soulmate client that you love to work with, and they have the money to invest with you. So you're not wasting your time with people who aren't qualified and having lots of great conversations, but no conversions. So this formula has helped hundreds of people just like you go from consult to client, high ticket client in 60 minutes or less. And I have a bonus just for you joining and staying till the end. I'm gonna give you 2 free gifts at the end when you stay. Absolutely free, there's no strings attached, there's no sales pitch on this, so there's no risk in you staying, right? So make sure you hang around to the end, grab your little fur buddy if you need one, grab a drink, whatever you have to do, because this is gonna be packed full of content, and I'm so excited that you decided to join me today.
I want to introduce you to someone who I met in a private high-level mastermind where some of the top entrepreneurs from across the planet meet up. We meet up a few times a year. We were in, where was our first one? Here! Yeah, it was in the montage. How excited was I about that? It's a beautiful moment where we're coming back to our roots. And I just love this woman because literally as positive and as excited about life as she seems on the stage is actually how she is 24/7, and has been just an amazing mentor to me and friend to me. Someone who gets the female entrepreneur space, someone who has definitely followed Kelly's advice through just being completely fearless, worked in heavily male-dominated spaces and just nailed it again and again and again and again. Been up against the wall quite a few times and had to make some pretty tough decisions, but has come out shining. Erica is an expert at sales. Oh, sorry, just one. Hey, Logan, sorry, can you just reset that? That's all right. She's an expert at sales. It's in your way, damn it. Expert at sales in the sense that I'd only ever met in my past, and not being sexist, but normally guys are better salespeople than females in my experience in the past that have been able to close really big deals because of that fearless thing that they seem to have. And so I'd ever only really learnt from male salespeople, and the women that I'd learnt from didn't have the same level of success that the guys had. The problem was that a lot of people that I was learning from were flipping sleazy. Had anyone experienced that in sales before, where it was just sleazy and it just didn't have, integrity behind it? Something that I would be really keen to follow and processes that I'd be really keen to apply, where I could confidently sit in a consult and follow this person's script without feeling a little bit icky, feeling really confident in what I was doing. I also knew, as a business owner, if I've got an amazing product or service and they've got a problem, if my program and products and services solve a problem, that it shouldn't be such a hard conversation. I just got to know the right stuff to say, right? I should be able to have joy in taking, in people's financial investment, because I know that I can now solve their problem for them. So I kind of have been wrestling this for a very long time. The stuff that Erica's going to be sharing with you today, she has lived and breathed it. She has had successes on stages selling hundreds of thousands of dollars. She knows what she's doing. So take your pens and paper out, listen up, and please welcome Erica to the stage. And be good, girls, because she will karate you. She can kick above her head.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Your buzz is there and your
Thank you.
water's there.
Gosh, I guess I should prove that. Aya! In heels. It makes me look taller than I am. Wow, that was such a kind introduction. Thank you so much. I want you guys to imagine for a moment. Imagine you have a consult call set up with somebody that is just perfect, and you've really prepared for it. You have this proven script that you've been told it works 100% of the time. You've sent all of your images to your graphic artist. You have done everything that you need to do to go ahead and seal this deal with your perfect person. Are you guys imagining? Okay. So you prepare for it, you get that nervous feeling right before you get on the call, you have everything laid out, your graphic designer is fabulous, and it has this perfect thing that makes you look larger than life. And you get on the call with this person, and as soon as you get on the call, you're like, this is it. This is my perfect client, I can tell. You know what that feeling when you can tell from the start? And you're like, this is a win, I've got this. And then you get a quarter of the way through the conversation, and it's confirmed. You're like, done. This is gonna be a done deal for me. You get halfway through the conversation, and you're feeling even better about it. Have you guys had that feeling before, that excitement? You're like, I can do this. And your nerves have melted away at this point because you've built that rapport and they're excited to hear what you have to say. Then you get 3/4 of the way through the conversation and it's even better and you're approaching that close and the nervousness starts to bubble up again, right? And then you're still feeling good, everything is yes, and you go and you make them your offer and they say no. Raise your hand if you've had that happen. Yeah. And I have too. And that's what I want to share with you guys is I'll share a bit about my background, but that's exactly what happened to me when I was 18 years old and I was running my very first business and I was so excited because I knew what I had to offer would transform the lives of hundreds of children in my local community. And I was dedicated and I was passionate and I was inspired to do that. So inspired that I put the fear to the side about having these conversations with parents of children who were way older than I was, who were raising kids, and I don't have any kids. But I knew that what I had to offer could really help. So I sat there across the table from these parents and I had this perfect script, and I had my thing outlined, and I had all of my supporting documents, and they were beautiful. And I got a no. And I was like, that's okay. Picked myself back up, I'm gonna do it again. Followed the same system, got a no. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm gonna do it again. And I got another no. And I was like, I really must suck at this. Or maybe what I have to offer isn't as grand as I thought it was. Has anybody ever felt that? Like maybe somebody doesn't need my work. It's like really heartbreaking. But then I'll take you on the journey with me of where it all changed. Would you guys like to hear my story? Okay, because I'm going to share it with you. It's happening. Okay. It would always, by the way, she did mention that I do martial arts, and I did happen to do a high kick when I got on stage. And the funny thing is when I was on the floor, when I was teaching on the floor, I would make jokes like that, and nobody would laugh because they were intimidated, so thank you for laughing at my jokes. I'm like, no, really, it's okay. But first, I have several questions to ask you guys. And your enthusiasm, like I just mentioned, really helps me, because believe it or not, I do get nervous on stage, just like you guys. So, are you ready to easily close more sales than ever before? You guys are wonderful. Are you ready to have a natural sales approach? Never feels pushy, salesy, any of that grossness. Yeah, right? And then, are you ready to learn how to never leave a lead behind without feeling like you're bugging them or calling too much or like, when is that stopping point? Are you guys ready for that? Yeah. Okay. And then last question, are you ready to learn a system that is so simple? You'll just be shocked that you didn't find it out earlier. All right, can I get a collective? Let's do this. Okay, but first, I know what you're wondering. Why doesn't Erica have pink hair in that picture? Just kidding. It's because I dyed it before I came here. Who is Erica Martin? So I'm going to take you on a journey with me that I'm going to teach you how I went from feeling so heartbroken that everybody was saying no to my work, and what led me to the system that I'm going to share with you today that I would love to see you implement so that you never have to feel that feeling again, and you never have to question if what you have to offer is worth it. Are you guys ready for that? Yeah. Great. Okay, so when I was 18 years old, I remember sitting on the couch with my dad one day, and my dad owned a martial arts school, and not only did he own a martial arts school, because in my family, we really like to do things at the highest level, like bigger and better than everybody else. So similar to what Grace was mentioning about her client that's like, well, how much do you make on Facebook? I would have been that person. And so was my dad. That's where I learned it from. So he built a martial arts school by hand in 1980, a 10,000 square foot facility, and he built it with the house that myself, my two sisters, we all grew up in there, attached to the back. I know. Weirdo. So I never had a neighborhood, but I had what's called a dojo. That's what a martial arts school is called. So if you hear me say dojo, that's what that means. So I grew up there, and I remember I was 18 years old, and I was sitting on the couch with my dad. And I remember him sitting there and having this look on his face, he was working through a problem. And he goes, man, this location is perfect for a second martial arts school, but we don't have anybody that's ready to run it. And I remember sitting there, and I looked that man dead in the eye, and I said, I could do this. And I'll never forget, he looked back at me, and he goes, you could do this. And then I was like, I could do this. I'm like way better at sales back then than I even knew. I was like, oh God, what did I get myself into? So I'll backtrack from there. From the time I was 15 years old, I knew that I wanted to open a martial arts school and be just like my dad. I've always been a daddy's girl. Any other daddy's girls in the room? Yes. So if you hear me talk about my dad a lot, it's because I really love him. So I had been going to business meetings with other martial arts school owners who looked like what? They're dudes. And they're big, burly dudes. And they're not always the friendliest. And I was the only young woman in the room, and I sat quietly and I took notes, and I just focused on what I needed to do, because I was preparing for my shot. I wanted to open a martial arts school as fast as possible, right? So that was when I was 15. So then when I was 16, when I was 14, I was working in his business doing data entry, which I hated. But then I was starting to teach martial arts classes. I was implementing sales, and I'll never forget the day that our strategy for sales before the internet and before social media marketing was talking to people and building relationships. It was old school. So one day, I was 16 years old, and he drove me to the park, and he dropped me off with a pen and paper and a stack of cards, and he said, hey, Erica, here you go. And I was like, great, what are we doing? And he goes, call me when you have 20 names and phone numbers, and close the door, and drove away. I was like, okay. And at that point, I had memorized a script. I was ready to rock. So I went, and in an hour, I had 20 names and numbers, and I called him. And that was my start in my addiction to sales. I'm like, oh, I can see how this translates to dollars. Let's do more of this. I'm not scared anymore. So then by the time I was 18, we drove past this perfect location, and then he sat there with that look on his face, and I convinced him to let me open my first martial arts school when I was 18 years old. So I did. And here's how I built that school. I went door to door in all of these neighborhoods in this sleepy little community, and I knocked on doors and I collected names and phone numbers just like I had done when I was 16 years old. And in that first year, I have to tell you, mentally it was challenging. I'm sure you can all think of people that are what we like to consider haters, right? That you're like, hey, I'm doing this thing and I'm so excited. Another word for those people is dream killers, right? And they're like, so have you thought about the legal side? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about the name? Oh, I don't like the name, right? Yeah, we don't need those people. And that was happening to me a lot because I was 18, I was blonde, I'm 5'2", and I'm not Mr. Miyagi. I'm just not. And the whole male-dominated industry is like, look at this little girl. Look at, oh, how cute. She thinks she can do this. And I'll tell you what, I might have been quiet in those seminars, but I'm damn feisty. And I'm like, okay, actions speak louder than words, I'll show you. So what did I do? In my first year of business, I was 18 years old, I went from $0 to $350,000. Thank you. Thank you. That's my martial artist. I have to bow if people clap. I don't know. It just came out. And I won Tampa Bay Business Journal's top 30 under 30. I was the youngest award recipient. I was only 20 years old when that happened. My first year in business was a Cinderella year. I bought my condo for $250,000 when I was 19 years old. I really felt like I was featured on news stations, industry magazines, and I was really, the pride comes before the fall, right? So little foreshadowing for you here. I was really, really excited to almost be like, ha, I did this. I'm 19 and screw you guys because I did this and I win. Well, then something happened in December of 2007, right? And what was that? The recession. So while I looked like this on the outside, while I was changing thousands of lives, I was in 7 different elementary schools once a month, teaching my message that I was so passionate about, that you heard when I first started, right? About living a good life and having good character. And this is what it looked like on the outside. But what was really happening was this. That's really what was happening on the inside. So I'm standing there in front of audiences of thousands of kids, inspiring them about going for their dreams, and slowly mine was crumbling. And I was like, okay, I got this. I'm a doer just like you. And I'm like, I'm gonna work harder, I'm gonna knock on more doors, I'm gonna take more action, I'm gonna put out more marketing materials, I'm gonna do it. But my business was in Florida. And the other thing that happened during that time, does anybody remember, by a show of hands, the BP oil spill? Yeah. So Florida is very tourism-based, and a lot of jobs are tourism-based. So while all this great stuff had happened my first year, what I didn't realize was that this was absolutely devastating. How many of you felt the recession? How many of you questioned if you could keep your homes? How many of you questioned if you could keep your jobs? Yeah. It was really a scary time. And then to add on top of that, the BP oil spill happened. And I remember having a conversation with a mom at my school, and she said, Erica, my oven broke and it's Thanksgiving. I can either pay for martial arts or I can pay for dinner on the table. What do you say? I mean, it is what it is, right? So I was like, okay, we're gonna hustle. It wasn't working. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I got a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was out with my dad, and we're like, okay, we're gonna just do some celebrating with our black belts. And I was out with my dad and our black belt family, and we're like, let's just have a good time, let's relax. And I got back into my car at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was a missed call from the guy that ran our Largo location. And he has a family. He's not out doing fun stuff at 1 in the morning. And I'm like, something's off. And I picked up the phone, and I said, hey, Joel, what's up? And I'll never forget the words that he said to me. He said, Erica, get your dad, the dojo's on fire. Did not expect this. That's my dad's facility, and that's my dad. So we drove 100 miles an hour to get there. And I'll never forget the heat of the flames on my body as I was standing right where he's standing, that far away from the building. And I remember the chief asking me, Erica, what's up here? What's up in that space? And I've grown up in this building. And I couldn't tell him. It was devastating. And in this space over here, that's where my dad and my sisters still lived. And thank God my sisters were not there that night. So this was a total loss. That's what it looked like. And that's my dad. And that's really what we felt like in that moment. And I said, gosh, we're in this financial crisis. Our Largo location is burned to the ground. It's on me. It's on me to deliver. It's on me to go ahead and rise up. And you know what, guys? I rallied because of this. I rallied hard, and I was like, I'll do this, and I'll work harder, and I'll do more, right? Because sometimes we think that doing more is the answer. But, then something happened that I really thought was the nail in the coffin for our family business. But it turned out to be the saving grace. 2 months after this happened, we went on another family trip, and I broke both of my wrists in a snowboarding accident. All 4 bones. Yeah. I had surgery on this wrist right here that has the tattoo on it because it's a sister tattoo. And let me tell you, when your arms are in casts up to your elbows, you can't do anything. And thank God I have sisters. Leave it at that in a room full of women. Yeah, it was that bad. So I thought, my God, we're done. We're done. We're never going to recover from this because of me, because I broke my wrist. We're going to go out of business. How many of you have put that kind of pressure on yourselves? It's all my fault. I made a bad decision. I'm from Florida. I don't snowboard. Clearly. It was my first time snowboarding, by the way. I know. And we had lessons. That's what makes it even worse. So what I did in that moment is what happened was it forced me to stop working so hard and start working more smart. Because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't drive myself. I couldn't blow my nose, for Christ's sake. I couldn't do anything. So I sat there like this. I could either do a hug or a field goal. Those were my options. And I was on a lot of pain medication when this picture was taken, by the way. Because that was my nurse man. He was very, very nice and thought I was hilarious because I was all doped up. This was in the actual hospital in Colorado Springs. So I sat down and I thought about, what can I do? I can't even teach martial arts classes, and it's my school. What can I do? Sales. I can do sales. And everything that we had done in the past wasn't working. So it forced me. I didn't have a choice. It forced me to do something different. I revamped our offers. I revamped the way that we were selling. In that moment that I described at the beginning where everybody was saying no, that was before this. And then after this, they just felt bad for me because I was in casts. Just kidding. And then after this, I just started to really get in touch with why people were saying yes when I was asking them for their name and phone number, but they were saying no when I was asking them for the sale. And it's because there was a discrepancy. And a lot of it had to do with the mindset like Kelly spoke about. But the discrepancy was I had no fear in asking people for their name and phone number, but when I was asking them to invest in me, it was a whole different ballgame. How many of you have done sales for somebody else? Has anybody done sales for somebody else, another company, another job, right? Okay, think about that, and then think about selling for yourself. How many of you have sold for yourself, right? Is there a big difference between the two? Yeah. Huge difference, right? So I revamped my offers. I revamped the way I was selling, and that was actually the foundation of what I'm going to teach you today for the Sales That Don't Suck system, for how I went from getting all of these no's to getting a bunch of yeses with people that loved me for it. They thanked me. Instead of telling me no, they told me yes and thank you so much. Holy cow. So to go from the nose to the formula that I formed when both of my wrists were broken, that has not only carried me through building my martial arts school to a point that I couldn't literally fit any more martial arts students in there, as you can see. This was the last belt testing I had in this original facility, and what you don't see is along the sides, like over in this area, there are a bunch of angry parents because it's really hot because there's so many bodies in the facility, and they couldn't see their kids testing and all of this stuff, and I had two choices. My choice was I either stay here and I don't enroll any more students, or I grow. And what do you think I chose? I grew. And what I did was I took a huge leap. So I know a lot of you have sat with yourselves and what Grace said, which was so perfect, when you have that feeling inside of you that you know you're destined to do something great, but it's scary. And you're afraid to take the leap. And maybe you don't know if you trust yourself. Well, my next leap from here, because I was safe, I was comfortable, I had a bunch of students, I had come off the recession and all of this shit that really was painful. This is a good spot to be in, wouldn't you say? Like, money's coming in, I'm good, I can pay my mortgage, right? Whereas before, I couldn't pay for a $5 lunch. I went next door to the Chinese food restaurant because Chinese food is all I could afford, and my card declined for $5. That's what I was coming off of. And here I am, and everybody's happy. So it would be really easy to stay where I was. But we're all doers in this room, aren't we? And that is not how we roll. Right? Can I get a woo? So I took all the money I had. We grew 30% over 30% over 30% for 3 consecutive years after that wrist point, because that's when we changed our sales system. And with the profits from that growth, as well as my own personal savings, down to $112 in my bank account, my dad and I came together as business partners, and we purchased this. Yay! So this was my dream dojo. It's still, to this day, one of the top martial arts schools in the entire world. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. And I spent a year in this facility as a business partner with my dad. And I had martial arts school owners all over asking me, how do you do what you do? And at this point, let me tell you, I was extremely happy that I was gaining a lot of recognition and on magazine covers and kind of like internally had that moment with the industry, but I was a lot less cocky about it. And I had school owners asking me how to do what I was doing. And so after only a year of being in this beautiful facility, I had 26 staff members. We were the top in income. We were the top in size of facility and beautiful. It's just gorgeous. I love it. Again, another safe spot that I'm like, okay, I'm safe here. Something was calling inside of me to do something bigger and greater. And I've always had a mission to transform thousands of lives. So that's what I decided to do. And what was next? I created, with my business partner, who you'll see here, a company called Martial Arts Success Team, which is a coaching company for martial arts school owners internationally. And within the first 8 weeks of launching this company, applying the same sales skills that I applied in my dojo and that I'll teach to you today, we went from 0 to 6 figures in sales in only 8 weeks. 8 weeks from launching. And that's when I got the bug again. And I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. It's always fun when we're making money, isn't it? And then what's even more than that, and my personal impact and why I love teaching sales and why I love teaching this system, and especially to all of you who have a message that needs to get out there, and there are people that need to be served by your message. Within the first 2 years, it says the $10 million team. With this sales system, I helped my clients collectively add an additional $10 million in sales above what they were already making within 2 years. Thank you. And that's my mission, and that's why I love teaching sales to people just like you, is because you deserve that. So that led to sales that don't suck and my next leap, which I'd love to share with you. Would you like to hear it? Okay, so literally 3 weeks ago, was it 3 weeks ago? Okay, literally 3 weeks ago, I decided to take my next leap. And I knew that sales was my calling. It's my genius zone. And everybody around me was like, Erica, like, you need to do more of this. Like, more people need to hear this stuff. And I said, okay, fine. So I sold my interest in my company, Martial Arts Success Team. And it was really nice. And and what made it even better is I think a key to sales and negotiation is everyone wins. So I'm great friends with my partner. We support each other in what we're doing respectively. He, in fact, introduced me to my amazing business partner, Mara. If we could give her a hand for her awesome presentation yesterday. So everybody wins, right? So I decided to dedicate full time to the business that Mara and I were creating as a side hustle originally. And I just knew it was my genius zone, and I knew I had to do more of it. And I knew that there was a greater market outside of martial arts that had to be able to take advantage of this system and implement it. So I'm going to share that with you today. And that's what we do with sales that don't suck. Because here's what we believe. When you can make sales, that is true freedom. Because if you have money, it takes that fear away, doesn't it? It takes that fight or flight. It takes the survival mode of like, I'm literally going to die. Have you ever felt that if you weren't making sales? Has anybody? Raise your hand. Like, I will not make it through, right? So sales equals freedom, and this system will apply in any of your businesses. And here's what I want to encourage you to do. As I teach you this formula, I want you to be thinking about how you can apply it in your specific niche. Because it works for selling cars, it works for selling services, coaching, martial arts lessons, getting in touch with your sexuality. Where's my girl? There she is. It works for all these things. So let's do it. Are you guys ready to do it? Yeah. Okay, so here's my promise to you. I promise that you will learn how to stop making sales so hard or scary, and I'm going to give you some actionable tips that you can implement right away. Would you guys like that? Okay, so then let's do this. All right, so first, this is why you need to have sales that don't suck. 1, if you can't sell, you can't serve, period. You need to find the right people. How many of you have ever had a really difficult sales conversation? Somebody said yes, and they turned out to be a giant pain in the ass. Raise your hand. Yeah, I don't condone that because it just sucks your life away. And this is about sales that don't suck. Next, close sales instead of having good conversations. There's a difference between conversations and conversions. Does that make sense? Have you had a good conversation with somebody and you thought they were going to say yes to your offer, and then they said no, and it was just a good conversation? Has that happened? Yes. Okay. So 4 is there are already things in your business that suck. Sales does not need to be one of them. Do we all agree? Yes. And then last but not least, it's awesome to be around like-minded people who encourage sales. How many of you have entered into a sales conversation with somebody and you wound up making an investment in them, in their product or service? Maybe it's the retreat, and you're just like, oh, I feel so great, and this is going to be wonderful. Has anybody had that happen? I certainly have, and that's what this system is designed to teach you, how you can attract soulmate clients and have them say yes, and everybody wins. Can everybody collectively say, everybody wins? Everybody wins. All right, so let's do it. I'm going to teach you the formula, and we're going to focus on one major piece of this formula. So here are the 5 steps for the sales that don't suck system. Number 1, create an offer that's so sexy, your prospects can't say no. And you guys are super fortunate because Mara was able to dive a little deep on that, and she is our fabulous copywriting expert, marketing expert. She's just absolutely incredible. Don't you guys all agree? Yeah, so she's able to dive in on that a little bit. So you guys get a bonus because normally when I speak, everybody gets one thing to focus on. You get two. How awesome is that? 2, following up to set it up. How important is it to actually get people into a conversation with you? Is it pretty important? Okay, because one-way sales conversations when you're looking at your beautiful self in the mirror might feel good, but they don't make money. So we have to follow up to set it up. Number 3, the sales that don't suck, consult call formula. When they're on the phone, how do you guide that conversation without it being scripted, without it being pushy, without you feeling like they might think that? Do you guys ever have that feeling like they might think that? Okay, so this formula will give you the freedom to never have that thought again because you'll just know they're never going to think that. Sound good? Okay. And then closing with a conscience. How do you seal the deal? How do you close? How do you get them to say yes? How do you get to that last 10th of a mile as you're finishing the marathon and finish strong? And finally, retention, upsells, and upgrades. So you guys can go ahead and write this down. And then also, excuse me, you'll have this in your portal as well. So retention, upsells, and upgrades. So for today, we are going to focus on one piece of this so we can really dive deep. Now, keep in mind, this is an entire formula and a structure, but this is the one that Grace and I chatted about before I came, and I said, what would your girls really need the most? And she goes, Erica, when they get on the phone, they need to be able to hit that home run. And I said, I got you, girl. So that's what we're going to dive in on, the consult call formula. Yay! Okay, so in this consult call formula, what you will learn in this presentation today is how to qualify the people and make sure that you're not wasting your time with people that aren't qualified and they don't have the money to invest with you, or they're going to be pain in the ass clients. And number 2, how to facilitate the conversation up until the point that you need to make the close. Do you think this would be helpful for you? Yeah. Okay, great. So let's move on. Step 1 of the consult call formula is welcome and warm-up questions. So I'm going to take a moment to dive deep on this. This is the area of the sales conversation that most people like to skip over. Raise your hand if you've ever gotten so excited to be on a consult call with somebody that you just want to tell them all about everything you do. Who's done that? And you kind of verbally vomit all over them about how awesome your program is. Has anybody done that? I've totally done that. If you're not raising your hand, you're probably lying. No, I'm just kidding. Because we're so passionate, right? We're so passionate, we're so inspired, we really want to help, and it's easy to talk about that. So warm-up questions and you're welcome are the number one thing that you guys can do to set up your conversation for success. And I'm going to share a quote with you that's really carried me through a lot of this and reminded me to do this. And you might want to write it down. People will break contracts. They will not break relationships. You start your relationship at the beginning of the call. So when you welcome them, and I'll let you guys finish writing. When you welcome them, do you need me to repeat that, or did you get it? People will break contracts, they will not break relationships. When you welcome them to the call, anything that you know about them that you can connect on, welcome them with that. If you know they're a dog lover and you're like me and I'm a dog lover, I can tell them about my little French bulldog, right? Or just connect with how they found you. You know, be a real human. This isn't overly professional or overly salesy. This is just you being you. When you ask the warm-up questions, they can be, hey, how's your day going? How was your weekend? If you've stalked them on Facebook, which I highly recommend. Be like, oh my gosh, I saw on your Facebook that you went to Disneyland this weekend with your kids. Did you have so much fun? Think about that. If I was to ask you that, which I know a lot of you have set up strategy calls with me, so we'll have a conversation, and I want to know about you because I genuinely care. And if you genuinely care about the person you're talking to, take the time to invest in this part. Okay? Now, the warm-up questions, we're going to do a quick exercise here. I want you to write, wherever you're taking notes, warm-up questions. And I'm only going to take 30 seconds, so this is going to be fast and furious. I want you to think of as many warm-up questions as you can. How are you? How did you hear about us? Anything that you can think in your specific industry that will warm the conversation up. Let's just take 30 seconds, rapid fire, write as many as you can. Ready, go. Ten seconds. Five, four, three, no pressure, 2, and 1, pencils down. Did you feel like you're taking the SAT? That's what I just felt like. I'm so sorry to do that to you. Okay, so ask the warm-up questions. The other thing that you must do in this step, is set expectations. Please write that down. Because that really made the difference in my coaching business between having that conversation with somebody or actually sealing the deal and closing the sale. Because if they know, we're humans, right? How many of you, I spoke to somebody yesterday, please raise your hand when I remember, like when I explained this, that told me, well, I'll backtrack. I said, you know what I really hate? I hate when somebody's like, hey, let's have a chat, let's have a conversation, and then at the end, you get a sales pitch. Who was that I was having that conversation with? Yeah, with you, right? At the table. And was it you that said, yeah, that's why I didn't sign up for the consult call with you? Michelle's like, that's why I didn't check the box. So that's the thing. People need to know what to expect. So if you're going to have a conversation with them about investing in your services, tell them up front. Set the expectations. So I'll give you an example of what that sounds like, and this is something you can refer back to. So for example, for Sales That Don't Suck, we have our retreat called 3 Days to 10K. So for us in our business, what we do is we have a 15-minute strategy session, which, by the way, if any of you signed up for the 15-minute strategy session, there will not be a sales pitch at the end of that. Just so you know, I would never do that to you. So here's how I set expectations around that. I will tell you, I'll do it right now with all of you. And so we'll probably do it again on the phone when we chat, right? It'll be something like this. So my goal today for this call, since we have 15 minutes, is to give you one actionable tip that you can implement right away in your business. That's the goal for this call. If by the end of the call, it seems like it would be a really good fit for us to move forward and work a little bit closer together, or if they know about our retreat, say the 3 Days to 10K, if that's something you're interested in, just let me know at the end of the call and we'll set up another interview where we'll go in depth on that. How good does that feel, right? How many of you wish you checked the box now? So that's setting expectations in a way that you can have that relief that you're not going to get hit up at the end. Make sense? Okay. So warm-up questions, setting expectations, and welcoming. The next step, step 2, I just talked about. So I want to dive a little bit deeper on that, is the setting expectations, right? So if I'm in a strategy session, for us is 15 minutes, and I want to give you one actionable tip, I tell you that. Let's talk about the expectations for the sales call. So if you guys do decide to go deeper, you'll know exactly what I'm going to do and say, wow, this really works. So when I go into that full hour-long consultation, so the formula that I'm sharing with you now, to be clear, is for an hour-long consultation to get people to enroll in your coaching program or whatever your offer is, to say yes. When you have that conversation, there is one promise that you need to make to yourself and to your clients to sell with integrity. And it's so funny because, like, we're mind melding over here. We're mind melding because I use that too. I just love everybody in this room. So the one promise that you need to make can sound something like this. When you and I chat today, I want to ask you a bunch of questions to find out more about your business. And the promise that I'll make you is, if at the end of this call or at the end of our session together, I feel that I'm not the right fit for you, I'm going to refer you to somebody, if I can think of them, that I feel will be able to help you. But if I am the right fit for you, and if this does feel right to both of us, would it be okay if we have a conversation about how we can work more closely together? How does that feel? It feels good, right? Because then it's on whoever I'm talking to. You guys can tell me if you're interested or not. And that's okay either way. I'm not attached. I'm attached to you having what you need to move forward. Write that down. Be attached to what your client has, what they need to move forward and achieve their goals. Because if it becomes about your goals that you're imposing on them, then it's not truly serving them, is it? I can try. And if not, it's on the recording. If it becomes, you have to ask yourself if you're meeting their needs. You have to make the promise around meeting their needs and what they want. Okay? And if you're not the right fit, don't sell them, because that's sales that suck. It's going to suck your time. It's going to suck your energy. It's going to suck your life, because you're trying to serve somebody not in your genius zone, right? Don't do that. So make them that promise so everybody can feel good as they move forward. And then they know that if you're recommending that you're going to work with them, that it's going to be the right fit, because you have a level of trust with each other. Does everybody follow? Okay, cool. All right, next. Step 3 is qualifying questions. This I'm going to take a little more time on, because I feel, based on the conversations I've had at the roundtables, raise your hand if you have had trouble qualifying people because they're saying no at the end of the conversation and you've wasted an hour of your life. Right. Okay, great. One quick question. Is everybody awake? I'm not killing you with content, am I? Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Got that energy up. Okay, qualifying questions. So this is the next step. You have your warm-up questions, and you have your qualifying questions. Here are the things to find out, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to write down questions that would qualify an ideal client for you. Okay? But this is what I want you to think in terms of. How do I find out if they have the money to invest? How do I find out if they need my genius zone? Okay, how do I find out if all the decision makers are on the phone or in person or wherever you're following this system? So I'm going to give you a couple gimme questions for qualifying, but then I want you to take some time and write some down, and I'm going to ask some of you to share because I think it'll really help the group. Okay? Gimme questions are, for example, if you're working with a business owner, you can ask them what their revenue is per year. But you have to know the level at which you're willing to work with somebody. If you're working with somebody that already has an existing business, you can say, okay, they have to do 6 figures plus. And if they don't, say, you can just stop the conversation right there and say, you know, I really know where you're at in your business. You're making $85,000, and I have a friend that works with people in your position that I think could help you get to that 100,000 mark, because that's where we start to do our work with people. Feels good, right? Right? Yeah. Okay. What's your gross revenue per year? Are you the only one? If you decide to say that this is for me, if I'm for you, are all the decision makers on the line today? Is there anybody else who would be involved in this decision? You have to find out. If you're talking to a woman and she goes, you know, really, my husband takes care of the finances, at that point, you can stop the conversation and you can say, okay, great. You know, do you think it would be really important to have him involved in what you're considering doing since he's in charge of all the finances? Which we all know the women are in charge of all the finances. So that's a terrible example. But we like to let them, Adam's out of the room. Sorry back there. We like to let them think that they're in charge of the finances. Okay, so asking those types of questions, confirming the decision maker, and then asking if they have a need. You know, what is your main goal? What's your goal for your work? What's your goal? For me, I know if somebody wants to improve if they want to make more money and make more sales, and they want awesome leads that don't suck and soulmate clients that we're going to work together, it's going to be amazing. But if they're like, I have soulmate clients, I need to know how to scale from 5 million to 8 million and build a corporate infrastructure, I'll go, okay, great. You're going to talk to somebody that's not me. Okay, so let's take a second. I'll give you a full minute because I'm feeling generous. I want you to write down qualifying questions that would indicate to you if somebody's a good fit or not. So in order to have your qualifying questions, you need to know what your metrics are that you need somebody to hit. Okay? All right, 1 minute, ready, go. And I fully expect hands raised for somebody that wants to share their qualifying questions at the end. "30 seconds. "15 seconds. No pressure. All right. So it looks like everybody's kind of close to wrapping up. So while some of you are finishing writing, is it okay if we share some other people's qualifying questions? Yes? Yes, okay. You guys better not be going to sleep on me because I still have more good stuff for you. Okay, who would love to share? Who's going to shoot their hand in the air? Yes, ma'am.
So I would do a series of questions.
Just give me one of them.
All right. Is money more important than the change you were trying to make?
Oh, who loves that? Is money, yeah, let's give her a hand. Yeah. Is money more important than the change you're trying to make? Great. Okay, what's another qualifying question? Yes, ma'am.
Who would be impacted positively or negatively if you took this action?
Oh my gosh, that's great. Who would be impacted positively or negatively if you took this action? Right? That's what you said? Yes. Let's give her a hand. That's fantastic. Okay, let me just kind of guide you a little bit. Who has a qualifying question around finding out if the decision maker's on the phone? Who wrote something? Yes, ma'am, please speak up.
Do you think that you would want to get your spouse involved in this program?
Okay, do you think that you would want to get your spouse involved in this program, like actually partnered with them to do it as well?
I do nutrition programs.
Okay.
I offer a discount if the spouse is involved.
Okay. I hope we're listening to this. This is great. Keep going, please.
And then if they say no, and I say, are they going to resist if you decide to make a change? Because when you're in a family, you're making a change and it impacts the whole family. Then they say no. I said, well, then which program are you interested in?
Mm-hmm.
And then if we got to get started today,
mm-hmm.
should we go ahead and get going?
Fantastic.
So I just make sure that there's not going to be resistance once they leave.
Yes.
And try to get the whole family on board because it's a lot easier to move the whole family.
Yes.
Than it is one person that needs resistance at all.
Absolutely. Let's give her a great big round of applause. Fantastic. Okay, so those are great examples of qualifying questions. So do you guys feel like you have a good idea and you can kind of dive in later on some more qualifying questions? Yes? Yes? Okay, just making sure. All right, next. Because there's 4 sets of questions and I want to make sure that we give time to each so that you can take this structure and you can literally walk out of this room right now and do a consult call and feel really good about it. Does that sound good? Okay, great. So the next one are personal questions. These are my favorite questions. And this is where we get a little play in the sales conversation. And what that means is you're going to kind of go with the flow on the personal questions. Go with the flow. It's kind of Mara and my motto. We're just going to go with the flow. And what that means is if they talk to you about their kids, if you find out that they have kids, for example, ask them about their family. Ask them about their kids. Are they a single mom? Are they a single dad? What is important to them? What is underneath why they're doing what they're doing? Find it out. What's their big why? So when you have personal questions, this is the key to getting your yes. Here's why. And you might want to write this down, right? Personal questions equals trigger. So what's the trigger? Who knows what the trigger is? Their pain point. Personal questions help you pinpoint the pain point. Do not skip personal questions. Okay, so I'm not going to have you guys write down personal questions right now. You can, but I want to move on to the technical questions, and I want to leave a little bit of time for some Q&A. Is that okay with everybody? Yeah. Okay, great, because I want to help you. All right, so personal questions, asking about family, asking about kids, finding their big why, having that conversation to find out about them. So the next step are the technical questions. This is simply making sure that your delivery method or your schedule or whatever it is going to work for them. It could be, are you available on Friday for coaching calls? Are you willing to invest 5 hours per week in this system? Bless you. Are you willing to set aside time on Mondays after you get our course curriculum to do the success work? I like success work because I don't like homework. You can steal that, by the way. It's just simply finding out if the delivery of your product makes sense. Ask yourself, so I like to reverse engineer the sale by asking myself what would prevent them from being a part of what you have to offer. So all of these questions are designed, and this is so important. This is the architecture of your sales conversation. All of these questions are designed to overcome your objections in advance because you're asking questions to find out what would prevent them from saying yes. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. All right. So technical questions around that, and you can write down those questions later as far as delivery, or these are the boring questions. These aren't my favorite. I have a bonus for you. Would you guys like a bonus? Yeah. Okay, great. So I want to give you some closing secrets. One of my closing secrets is using the tour guide strategy. And this is really, really important in a sales conversation because the person that asks the questions is the one who essentially controls the conversation. That's the tour guide, right? How many of you have been on a roller coaster, like to a theme park? Or you've had kids that are on a roller coaster or anything like that, right? Have you ever seen at the end when they get off the roller coaster and you have to walk through the what? Bingo. You have to walk through the gift shop. So if somebody gets to the end of your conversation and you're getting ready to close them, that's your what? That's your gift shop. So you have to say, okay, great. So now here we go. We're going to go to the gift shop. And they go, okay, here's my credit card. So take the tour guide strategy. So one of my favorite things to do is if I know that it's a good fit, and that's the key, I will only ever sell to somebody that I know I can serve, period. So when we get to that point, it's a matter of me leading the way as a fearless leader and saying, I've got your back, this will help you, we're partners together, let's do this. Yes. So I go, okay, great. I feel like you're going to be a great fit for this program. I really feel like we can help you. Many times I'll share with them why I personally think that I can help them because I care and because they need to know that. And I say, let's go ahead and get started. And we go right into it. I'm the tour guide. If I can help somebody, it's my responsibility to share with them that I can help them and give them the confidence. Because how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hands for this, so you can just think in your head, but how many of you, for example, when Grace is talking about Hawaii, and you get that feeling bubbling up that goes, ooh, I really want to do that with her. And gosh, she can help me so much. And gosh, like if I had 5 days with Grace in a beautiful place, like I really want that. But then there's this other little birdie on your shoulder that loves to like look at your bank account and go, but no, you don't have enough money to do that. And that's a really terrible decision. And going to Hawaii and I have all these things to do, right? Yeah, that's your little voice that's trying to protect you and keep you safe. When you're in a sales conversation, the person you're talking to also has that. And it's bullshit. It is. Because that's your old story, the mindset that Kelly was talking about, that's your old experience, that's your fear of rejection, that's your fear of failure, and you need to kill that bitch. Sorry. Because she sucks. So why I love sales so much is because I get to have a part in killing that little voice for somebody. And I'm a fighter, baby. So when you take them through this process, you need to display the confidence that you can truly help them because you're selling with integrity and you know you can. And you need to convey that to the person you're talking to because they're going to have that internal fear. And it's up to you to say, let's do this together and here's how we do it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Awesome. Love it. So those are some closing secrets. I want to recap what we've learned today. So the first thing we learned is the 5 steps to sales that don't suck. We also learned how you set expectations to win. We want to have great conversations that turn into conversions. The 4 questions to ask for a successful consult call, qualifying your lead without quitting too early, finding out if they're right. And then, of course, the closing secrets. Yes, you can take a picture of that if you'd like. It'll also appear in your portal as well. And I have 5 minutes left, so I do want to take some Q&A, and I have 2 more slides to go through with you guys. One is, these are your 5 steps to the sales that don't suck system. So I want to point out to you, we were really able to dive deep on this consult call formula. And I wanted you to have things that you can take action on right away. But I also want you to know that you have to get people to show up. You have to create an offer that's compelling. You have to be in your genius zone. You have to follow up in many different ways, whether it's social media and phone calls and text messages, and what are the things that cause them to show up? You got to get them on the phone. Once you have them, now you know what to do, right? Yeah. Exactly. And then closing with a conscience. I gave you a couple little bonus tips, but how do you actually facilitate that close? How do you overcome the objections? Because they're going to come up. Oh my God, we didn't even talk about that, did we? Not to worry, ladies. And then there's also the retention, upsells, and upgrades. Mara's dad has a fantastic quote that's the best way to scale and grow your business is to sell to your existing clients. So how do you do that in a way that continues to not be salesy or sucky, and that it continues to keep the right people on board, and when people are done and they're ready to fly, let them fly. Does that make sense? Okay, so what's next? I have a special gift just for you. Are you excited? Yes. Okay.
Congratulations! You made it, and thank you so much for staying all the way through the end. I'm sure you're really glad you did, and I'm sure you took a ton of notes that you're going to take action on right away. I hope you got all of your questions down that you're going to be asking in your consult calls that make sense for your business. And I promised you at the end I had 2 free gifts I wanted to give to you, and of course I want to make good on that promise. So here's what I have for you today. You heard me mention in my talk about a strategy session, how it's a 15-minute call, one-on-one with me or a member of my team. And the whole purpose of that call is for you to get to know me to get to know you, and for you to get one actionable tip for your business, customized just for you. You can ask me anything you want about your sales process. It's a straight up give to you in that 15-minute strategy session. And since you stayed to the end, I would love for you to click the button
and schedule your strategy session with me one-on-one right away. Remember, I always practice what I preach and I always deliver on my promises. So at the end of that call, there'll be no scummy sales pitch. It's literally a give just for you because I genuinely want to help you. And hey, if at the end you want to talk about working more closely together, we can definitely set up another call for that, but there's no sales pitch on this one. The problem is, we have a ton of people watching this web class, and I know I'm not gonna have a lot of spaces open. So if this is calling to you, if you loved what you learned and you'd like to learn some more, click the button on this screen and let's get started. Set up your free 15-minute strategy session, and then once you do, wait a second, I told you you had another bonus, now didn't I? And here's what it is. Once you set up your strategy session, I'm going to send you a video that I made on the 5 steps to overcoming objections. Remember, I referenced that in my talk. What do? You go through this whole process and somebody hits you with an objection right at the end. Holy cow, how do I handle it without losing the sale? I got you covered. So not only are you set up for success with a free strategy session with me that I'm gonna give you something you can implement right away, but once you do, I will also send you my video for the 5 steps to overcoming objection. How awesome is that? So go ahead, click the button below, and I can't wait to speak with you and learn a little bit more about you and your business. Let's do this.